The sun bore down merciless on Clearwater, a dried-up excuse for a town squatting on the edge of West Texas like a tick on a mangy dog. Martha Reyes stood in the shadows of Mason's General Store, watching folks pass by with their eyes sliding off her like water off oiled leather. 23 years breathing this dust, and she'd learned to read those looks better than any book. Half Anglo, half Apache, that's what her mother had been, making Martha neither one thing nor the other in a place where being different meant being dangerous. Her PA, whoever he was, had left nothing but his pale skin mixed with her mother's copper, creating something the good folks of Clearwater couldn't quite stomach. "Move along, Breed," muttered Jake Thornton, spitting tobacco juice dangerously close to her worn boots. The banker's son had gotten meaner since his daddy started eyeing the sheriff's badge. Martha kept her head down, fingers tight on the basket holding Mrs. Patterson's laundry. $2 for a week's washing, enough to keep her belly from meeting her backbone. Barely. The boarding house where she rented a corner room sat on the wrong side of the tracks, where the decent women clutched their skirts tighter and the men's eyes lingered too long. Mrs. Holloway, the proprietress, took her rent but made sure Martha knew it was charity, not kindness. "Don't know why I keep you on," the old woman would say, counting the coins with liver-spotted hands. "Bad for business, having your kind around. Folks talk." Folks always talked in Clearwater. They talked about how Martha's mother had died birthing her, alone in a shack outside town. They talked about how old Samuel, the Negro blacksmith, had found the baby and brought her to the church steps. They whispered about Apache blood and heathen ways, though Martha had never known any life but this sun-baked town and its Christian hypocrisy. She made her living washing clothes, mending tears, and sometimes helping Doc Morrison when his arthritis got too bad. The doctor was one of the few who'd meet her eyes straight on, maybe because he'd seen enough blood to know it all ran red. But even his kindness had limits. She entered through the back door and left the same way. That Tuesday started like any other, with Martha hauling water from the well before the sun got too high. Her hands, already rough from lye soap, split a little more each day. She was hanging sheets behind the boarding house when she heard the horses. 3 riders, dust-caked and mean-looking, pulled up at the saloon. Nothing unusual there, except one of them, a scarred man with pale eyes, kept staring at her. Martha knew that look. It was the kind that made smart women find somewhere else to be. She finished quick and slipped inside, but trouble had a way of finding those already marked by it. That evening, as she served the boarding house supper, "Mrs." Holloway's face was pinched tighter than usual. "Missing," the old woman announced to the table. $40 gold, right from my lockbox, hidden in my room. It was... The boarders, 2 traveling salesmen, a school teacher heading west, and Mr. Garrett, the telegraph operator, all made appropriate noises of shock. Martha kept her head down, serving beans and cornbread, but she felt the change in the air like a coming storm. "Well," said Garrett, his weasel face turning toward her, "seems to me we ought to check everyone's things. Start with those who've got access to all the rooms." "I was doing laundry all day," Martha said quietly. "Ask anyone." "Apache are known for being sneaky," one of the salesmen offered. "It's in their nature." The word hung in the air like smoke. Mrs. Holloway's eyes, already cold, went arctic. "I want you out," she said. "Tonight, take your things and go." "But I didn't." "Don't matter what you did or didn't do." The old woman's voice cut like a rusty blade. "Can't have folks thinking I harbor thieves. Bad for business." Martha had $7 saved, wrapped in cloth and hidden in her mattress. She packed her few belongings, 2 dresses, her mother's wooden comb, a blanket that had seen better decades, into a feed sack. The other boarders watched her go like coyotes watching wounded prey. Outside, the scarred man from earlier leaned against a post, smoking. His pale eyes followed her as she walked past. "Heard you might be looking for work," he said, voice like gravel in a pan. Martha kept walking. "Garrett's got himself a loose tongue when he's drinking. Says that gold might turn up in all sorts of interesting places, maybe even a half-breed's room." She stopped then. Understanding flooding cold despite the evening heat. A setup. Garrett owed money all over town, everyone knew it. "What do you want?" The man smiled, showing teeth like old tombstones. "Mr. Watson owns the Lazy J Ranch. He's looking for someone to keep house, private-like. You understand?" Martha understood plenty. Watson was 60, rich, and his last 2 wives had died young. "I'll make my own way." "Not many ways for your kind to make." The scarred man flicked his cigarette into the dust. "But suit yourself. Though I'd hate to have to tell Sheriff Daniels where that gold really ended up. Found right in your little hidey hole, wrapped in cloth, just like you wrap your savings." The boarding house door opened, and Garrett stepped out, trying too hard to look casual. Martha's $7 her escape money, her eating money, her everything money was already in someone else's pocket. She'd bet her life on it. "Tomorrow noon," the scarred man said. "Watson'll send a wagon. Be smart, girl." Martha walked away, her belongings clutched tight, her mind racing. The sun was setting, painting the sky the color of dried blood. She had maybe 10 hours before that wagon came. 10 hours before she became another kind of property in a town that already owned her in all but name. The cemetery sat on a hill outside town, and that's where her feet took her. Her mother's grave had no stone, just a wooden cross that Martha repainted each spring. She knelt in the cooling dust, not praying she'd given that up years back, just thinking. The gold in her stomach, tucked tight in a leather pouch, had been her mother's. 3 small nuggets, maybe worth $50, maybe more. Her mother had sewn them into her own belly during pregnancy, cutting herself open to hide them when the contractions started. Old Samuel had found them when he found Martha, had kept them safe until she was old enough to understand their weight. "For when you need to run," he'd said. "Your mama paid blood for that freedom." Now she had gold but nowhere to run to. Every town had its Clearwater, its good Christian folks who'd smell Apache on her like smoke. The scarred man was right, there weren't many ways for her kind to make it. But dying free beat living owned. Martha stood, dusting her knees. Mind made up. She'd head west into the desert, toward the Comanche territory everyone whispered about. Better to die quick under their knives than slow in Watson's bed. The gold might buy her passage, or at least a clean death. She walked back toward town as shadows stretched long and thin. One more night to gather what supplies she could. One more night before she left Clearwater forever. One way or another. The stars were coming out, cold and distant as the eyes of the townsfolk. Martha Reyes, outcast and accused thief, daughter of nobody and everybody's scorn, pulled her shawl tight and prepared for her last night in the only home she'd never been welcome in. Tomorrow, she'd take her mother's gold and her mother's blood and see which one ran out first. The moon was still high when Martha slipped out of Clearwater like a ghost. She'd spent the dark hours gathering what she could, a canteen from behind the saloon, hardtack biscuits that the freight office wouldn't miss, an old army blanket someone had thrown out, her mother's gold nuggets pressed heavy against her ribs, sewn into a small pouch inside her dress. She'd stolen Doc Morrison's old mare. Stealing didn't sit right, but dying didn't sit any better. She left her mother's wooden comb on his back step, the only thing of value she had besides the gold. Maybe he'd understand. Maybe not. Either way, she'd be long gone before the sun told tales. The mare, Buttercup, was sway-backed and half-blind. But she knew the desert trails. Martha had helped birth her 15 years back, when the doc still let her in through the front door. The horse remembered kind hands, and that counted for something in a world short on kindness. They headed west, away from the rising sun that would soon set Clearwater's tongues wagging. The scarred man would find an empty room at the boarding house. Watson would send his wagon to collect nothing but dust and disappointment. By then, Martha planned to be past Cedar Ridge, past the last ranch, past anywhere civilized folk might think to look. The desert opened up before her like a vast brown sea. Sagebrush and mesquite dotted the landscape, throwing twisted shadows in the moonlight. She'd heard the stories travelers lost in the sage, dying of thirst within sight of water they couldn't find. Comanche raids that left nothing but buzzards and bones. Mexican bandits who'd gut you for your boots. But those were stories told by people who'd never had Clearwater's boot on their neck. By dawn, she'd covered maybe 15 miles. The mountains rose purple in the distance, promising shelter and danger in equal measure. She found a dry wash lined with cottonwoods and made camp, sharing the last of her clean water with Buttercup. Sleep came hard and left quick. She dreamed of her mother's face, which she'd never seen, and woke to the sound of her own name carried on the wind. Imagination, maybe, or maybe Clearwater's reach was longer than she'd thought. The second night brought trouble. She'd pushed too hard, trying to gain distance, and Buttercup had thrown a shoe. The mare limped brave, but each step hurt to watch. Martha walked alongside, leading her toward what looked like water, a green smudge against the brown. It was water, but she wasn't alone. 3 men sat around a small fire, passing a bottle. Their horses, good ones, were hobbled nearby. Martha tried to back away quiet, but Buttercup nickered, lonely for her own kind. The men turned fast, hands on guns. Martha's heart hammered, but she kept her voice steady. "Just passing through, my horse is lame." One stood, unfolding, tall and lean. His face was sun-dark, Mexican maybe, with eyes that took in her mixed blood and lone state in one knowing glance. "Señorita travels alone, dangerous country for such." "Dangerous everywhere," Martha said. That got a laugh, short and bitter. "True words. Come, water your horse. We're no bandits." They weren't bandits, they were worse. Army deserters, heading for Mexico with stolen payroll and burned bridges. But they shared their beans and coffee, and one looked at Buttercup's hoof with knowing hands. "Stone bruise," he said. "Needs rest." "Can't rest," Martha replied. The tall one, Carlos, studied her. "Someone follows." She nodded. "Us too." He smiled without humor. "Perhaps we travel together for a time. Safety in numbers." "No." Martha weighed her options. 3 armed deserters or alone in the desert with a lame horse. The gold burned against her ribs. But these men were running too hard to care about robbery. "Just to the mountains," she agreed. They moved at night, resting days in whatever shade they could find. The deserters knew the waterholes, the hidden trails, the signs that meant danger. Martha learned to read dust clouds and bird flights, to sleep light with one hand on the knife Carlos had given her. "For the snakes," he'd said, but they both knew he meant the 2-legged kind. On the 4th day, everything went to hell. They'd stopped at a known spring, desperate enough to risk it. The water was sweet, the shade deep, and for a moment Martha let herself believe she might actually make it. Then the shots came. Not army, the deserters would have heard army coming. These were civilians, a posse maybe, or just men who liked hunting men. Carlos went down first, red spreading across his white shirt. The other 2 scattered for cover, firing back, screaming in Spanish. Martha pressed herself flat behind a boulder. Buttercup's reins wrapped tight around her wrist. The mare danced and pulled, but didn't bolt. Good horse, better than her rider deserved. The shooting stopped. Voices called out, rough with excitement. She heard Clearwater accents. Watson's men had to be. They'd tracked her further than she'd thought possible. Or maybe they'd been tracking the deserters and found her as a bonus. "We know you're there. Breed come out nice and we'll make it quick." Martha's hand found the gold pouch. 3 nuggets, worth maybe $50. Her mother's freedom, bought with blood, sewn into her own belly and cut free for her daughter. She pulled out 1 nugget, held it up where the sun caught it. "I've got gold, let me go and it's yours." Laughter, ugly and certain. "Watson wants you breathing, girl. The gold's just bonus." She heard them moving, flanking her position. The surviving deserters had gone quiet dead or fled. Buttercup stood patient, trusting, too old to know she should run. That's when Martha saw them. 5 riders on a ridge to the south, still as painted death against the sky. She couldn't make out details, but something in their posture, their watching, made her skin prickle. Indians. Had to be. Comanche, maybe. Drawn by gunfire. The posse hadn't seen them yet, too focused on closing their trap. Martha made her choice. She vaulted onto Buttercup, kicked hard, and broke cover heading straight for that ridge. Shouts behind her. Shots that whined past like angry hornets. Buttercup gave her all. Bless her ancient heart. They made it 50 yards, 100, before the mare stumbled. Martha flew over her neck, hit hard, rolled. The gold pouch tore free, scattering nuggets across the sand like drops of solid sunshine. She scrambled for them, stupid with panic, as hoofbeats thundered closer. A shadow fell across her. She looked up to see Watson's scarred man, grinning wide. Well now, looks like you dropped something. Behind him, his partner was already dismounting, rope in hand. But their horses were dancing, eyes rolling white. The scarred man turned, following their fear, and his grin died quick. The 5 riders were coming down from the ridge, coming fast, coming quiet as death despite their speed. "Indians!" someone screamed. "Dear God, Indians!" The posse scrambled for horses, for guns, for any kind of defense. Martha stayed low, clutching 2 nuggets the third lost somewhere in the sage. She watched the riders come, and her heart did a strange thing. Instead of more fear, she felt something like hope. The lead rider was young, painted for war, magnificent on a spotted pony. His eyes found hers across the distance, held for a heartbeat. Then he was wheeling toward the fleeing posse with a war cry that turned her bones to water. Martha didn't wait to see more. She grabbed Buttercup's reins. The mare was on her feet, trembling but whole, and led her quick into a tangle of mesquite. There she crouched, making herself small, as the desert exploded into violence. It was over fast. Watson's men had numbers, but the Comanche had surprise and skill. When the dust settled, 2 of the posse were down. The rest scattered to the 4 winds, riding hard for anywhere but here. Martha stayed frozen, barely breathing. The warriors gathered the fallen men's weapons, spoke in their own tongue. Then the young leader turned his spotted pony toward her hiding spot. He said something she didn't understand. When she didn't move, he swung down from his horse, approaching slow like she was a spooked deer, which wasn't far from truth. Up close, he was younger than she'd thought, maybe 25 summers. His face was fierce with paint, but his eyes were steady, curious. He pointed at her, at the gold nugget still clutched in her fist, then at himself and his men. She understood, offering trade, her gold for her life. Martha held out the nuggets on a shaking palm. The warrior looked at them, then at her face, studying. He said something to his companions that made them laugh. Then, in broken English that surprised her breathless, he spoke. "We want you, not gold." The words hung in the desert air like a challenge, a promise, a threat she couldn't tell which. Maybe all 3. Martha's hand closed around the nuggets. Her mother's gift, her freedom fund, now useless as desert stones. The warrior waited, patient as the mountains. Behind him, his men sat their ponies easy, watching her like she was some new creature they'd never seen before. Martha looked back the way she'd come, toward Clearwater and Watson and the life of slow dying they'd planned for her. Then she looked west, toward the unknown, toward these painted strangers who wanted her but not her gold. Buttercup nudged her shoulder, ready to go wherever she led. Martha Reyes made her choice. The warriors moved like smoke across the desert, their ponies picking paths Martha couldn't see. She rode behind the leader, his strong arm holding her steady on his spotted horse while one of the others led Buttercup. They'd left the killing ground quick, before the buzzards came calling. Nobody spoke. The only sounds were horse breath and leather creaking, the whisper of wind through sage. Martha's mind raced with every story she'd ever heard about Comanche, how they tortured captives, made slaves of women, did things that proper folks only whispered about, but proper folks had never wanted her anyway. The leader's name, she learned, was Joseph Standing Wolf, a Christian name paired with something older. His English came in broken pieces, learned from traders and captives. The others called him something that sounded like Numu Tekwapu, which he didn't translate. They rode through the heat of the day, stopping only to water the horses at hidden springs. Martha dozed despite herself, exhausted from running, and woke to find they'd climbed into the foothills. Pines replaced sage, and the air carried a coolness that spoke of altitude. The camp appeared sudden-like, hidden in a bowl between hills. Maybe 40 lodges, buffalo-hide teepees arranged in careful order. Dogs ran out barking, children following curious and bold. Women looked up from their work, faces going careful at the sight of her. Joseph lifted her down, gentle but firm. He spoke rapid words to an older woman who studied Martha with eyes like black flint. The woman, broad-faced, strong, with gray threading her braids, walked around Martha like she was horse meat at market. "You work?" the woman asked in clearer English than Joseph's. "Yes, ma'am. I wash, cook some, mend." "Hands." Martha held them out. The woman examined her calluses, the split skin, the strength earned through years of lie and labor. She nodded once. "You stay with me. Work hard, no trouble." It wasn't a question. The woman, who Martha would learn was called Maria Two Horses. Another captured Mexican who'd risen to respected status took her to a lodge near the center of camp. Inside, buffalo robes covered the ground, and the air smelled of smoke and tanned hide. "You are not slave," Maria said, sorting through goods. "Not wife, between." "Then what am I?" "Alive." Maria's look was sharp. "Better than what waits behind." "No." Martha couldn't argue that. Maria gave her Comanche clothes, a doeskin dress soft as butter, leggings, moccasins that fit better than her cracked boots ever had. The dress felt strange, free, like wearing wind. "Your skin," Maria touched Martha's arm, "speaks of the people already. Apache. Yes, this is good. You learn quick or die quick." The first days blurred together. Martha hauled water, scraped hides, learned which roots to gather and which would poison. The women watched her sideways, waiting for her to complain, to act superior like white women did. But Martha had spent her life serving others. This wasn't so different, except here they fed her proper and nobody spat when she passed. Joseph kept his distance, but she felt his eyes following her work. Other warriors made offers: horses, blankets, rifles even. Maria laughed at each one. "Standing Wolf has claimed first right," she explained. "He saved you, so others wait." "Wait for what?" "For you to choose, or for him to lose interest." Maria studied her. "You have moon blood." Martha flushed but nodded. "Good. You can give children. This matters more than gold here." At night, Martha lay awake listening to camp sounds, mothers singing, men telling stories, children giggling. So different from Clearwater's sullen silence. She thought about her gold nuggets, now sewn into her new dress, useless as promises in this place where value meant strong hands, healthy wombs, and knowing which way the wind would blow. After a week, Joseph approached her at the river where she washed clothes. He squatted nearby, skipping stones while she worked. "You run from white man?" he asked finally. "Yes." "They hurt you." Martha considered her words. "They wanted to own me." He nodded, like this made perfect sense. "My mother was Mexican, taken in raid when young. She chose to stay, became first wife to my father, respected. And if she hadn't chosen to stay, then she would go." He looked at her straight. "Comanche do not keep unwilling women. Bad luck, bad children. You understand?" Martha wasn't sure she did, but she nodded. "I have 2 wives. Joseph continued, "Good women, but I see you fight those men. See your spirit, like wild horse better free than broken. I'm nobody special. You are alive. In this country, that makes you special." He left her to think on that. Maria found her later, still scrubbing the same shirt over and over. "He is good man," the older woman said. "Young, but wise. His wives kind they would welcome you. As what third wife servant? As woman who chooses her place." Maria's voice went soft. 20 years I am here. 20 years since soldiers killed my Mexican family. Since the people took me, I could have run many times. I stay because here I am. Maria, 2 horses, respected. There, I would be nothing. That night there was celebration. A successful raid had brought horses and goods. Martha helped serve food, keeping her head down. But the festive mood was catching. Children played around the fires, and even the dogs seemed to smile. Joseph found her as she carried empty bowls. "Dance," he asked. "I don't know your dances." "Then learn." He pulled her into the circle before she could protest. The steps were simple women on one side, men on the other, moving to drums that sounded like heartbeats. Martha stumbled at first, but the rhythm caught her, pulled her along. Other women smiled, showing her the movements. She danced until her feet hurt, until sweat ran down her back, until the world narrowed to drumbeat and firelight. When she finally stopped, breathless, Joseph was watching with something new in his eyes. "You dance like one born to it," he said. "My grandmother, my mother's mother, was Apache." "Then you come home, not to strangers." Home. The word sat strange in her mind, but looking around at the faces, some suspicious, all alive with purpose, she wondered if it could be true. Later, the camp settled into sleep. Martha sat outside Maria's lodge, too wound up to rest. The stars spread above like spilled salt, clearer than she'd ever seen. Somewhere in the distance, coyotes sang. Joseph appeared from the darkness, quiet as thinking. He sat beside her, not touching, but close enough she could smell the sage smoke in his hair. "The men you ran from, they will come." "Maybe. Watson's rich. He doesn't like losing." "Let them come." His voice carried no boast, just fact. "This is our land. We know every stone, every shadow." "Why did you save me?" He was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "My mother told stories. How she was saved, given choice. How that choice made her strong, made her choose my father true. I saw you with those men, fighting even when caught. Reminded me. I'm not your mother. No, you are Martha who runs. Maybe someday Martha who stays." They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars wheel overhead. Inside the lodge, Maria snored soft. Somewhere a baby cried and was soothed. Normal sounds of living people, not the bitter silence of Clearwater nights. "I still have the gold," Martha said sudden-like. "2 nuggets, hidden." Joseph shrugged. "Keep them. Maybe someday you need to run again. Should be your choice." "You really don't want them?" "Gold makes white men crazy, makes them kill, enslave, destroy. We take their horses, their guns, useful things. Gold." He picked up a pebble, tossed it into darkness. "Cannot eat gold, cannot ride it, cannot keep warm with it." Martha pulled out 1 nugget, held it up. Firelight turned it red as blood. "My mother died getting these to me. Then they are medicine, sacred. Keep them." He stood, stretched. "Tomorrow we move camp. Higher, where white men do not like to follow. You ride with Maria." He was gone before she could respond, melting into darkness like he'd never been. Martha sat holding her mother's gold, feeling its weight differently now. Not freedom money anymore. Just memory, just medicine. Just one more thing that made her neither white nor red, but something between. The stars kept their silence. The camp slept on. And Martha Who Runs sat thinking about choosing, about staying, about the strange truth that sometimes being wanted meant more than being free. The new camp sat high in a valley where eagles nested, and the wind carried pine resin sharp enough to cut. Martha had never breathed air so clean it hurt. They'd traveled 3 days through passes that would spook a mountain goat. The entire band moving smooth as water despite children, elders, and enough goods to stock a trading post. Now, with lodges raised and fires burning low, she felt the day's exhaustion in her bones. But Maria had warned her first night in new camp meant ceremony, meant showing the spirits they came in peace. Martha sat with the women, learning to make fry bread over coals. Her hands were clumsy with the dough. But Sarah Crowfeather Joseph's first wife guided her patient-like. Sarah was maybe 5 years older, with a face that smiled easy and hands that never stopped working. "You learn quick," Sarah said in her mix of English and signs. "Good. Strong worker makes strong band." Rebecca Moondance, the second wife, was younger, quieter, with eyes that watched everything and said little. She tended the fire while her son, barely walking, played with colored stones. When the boy toddled toward Martha, Rebecca tensed, then relaxed as Martha lifted him gentle, letting him grab at her braids. "He likes you," Rebecca said soft. "Children know good hearts." The drums started as darkness fell full. Different from the celebration before, deeper, older, calling something Martha felt in her chest but couldn't name. The men gathered on one side of the central fire, women on the other, children scattered between like small stars. Joseph stood with the other warriors, but his paint tonight was different. Where before he'd worn war colors, now his face bore white and blue peace marks. Maria explained. His chest was bare despite the mountain cold, scars telling stories Martha couldn't read yet. An elder, bent with years but voice still strong, began to sing. Others joined, harmonies that rose and fell like wind through canyons. Martha didn't understand the words, but the meaning came through clear gratitude, connection, belonging to this land that held them. "Watch," Maria whispered. "Learn. This is how we remember who we are." The dancing started slow. Men first, movements that spoke of hunting, fighting, protecting. Then women rose, their steps talking of gathering, nurturing, the quiet strength that kept the band alive. Martha stayed seated until Sarah pulled her up. "You dance. You are here. You dance." So she danced, following the women's lead, feeling foolish until the rhythm caught her again. This time was different from before, not celebration but ceremony, not joy but purpose. She moved until sweat beaded cold on her skin, until her legs shook, until time went strange and fluid. When she finally sat, Joseph was across the fire, watching. He nodded once, approval or acknowledgement. She wasn't sure which. Later, much later, when the ceremony wound down and people drifted to their lodges, Martha helped bank the fires. The night had gone still, mountain cold, stars close enough to touch. She was heading for Maria's lodge when Joseph appeared beside her. "Walk," he asked. She glanced at Maria's lodge, but the older woman waved her on with a knowing look. They walked to the edge of camp where sentries kept watch, then beyond to a flat rock that jutted out over the valley. Below, darkness pooled deep, but above, the sky blazed with more stars than Martha knew existed. "Sit," Joseph said, folding down easy. "I will tell you something." Martha sat careful, aware of his nearness, the heat of him in the cold air. He smelled of smoke and sage, leather and something wild she had no name for. "My people," he began, "are not what white men say. Not savage, not without law. We have rules, ceremonies, ways of being. You saw tonight." It was beautiful. Beautiful, yes, but more. It connects us to land, to spirits, to each other. Without this, we are nothing, just people wandering, lost. He picked up a small stone, turned it in his fingers. "White men come. say we must farm, must build wooden houses, must pray to their God, but we know who we are. The land tells us, the buffalo tell us, the stars tell us. Then why save me? I'm not Comanche. No, but you are between worlds, like my mother was, like many here. We are not pure anything anymore. Apache, Mexican, even some white blood mixed in. What matters is choosing to be people, to live as we live, to defend what we defend. A coyote called far off, answered by another. Martha shivered, and Joseph shifted closer, not touching but sharing warmth. Those men who chased you, tell me true, what did they want? Martha's hand found her gold through the doeskin. A rich man wanted me for his house, his bed, his property. Joseph's face went hard. This is white man way. Own everything, land, animals, people. We take captives, yes, but they become us or they go. No middle ground of owned but not belonging. Maria said she could have run. Many times I helped her chances. When I was young, left horses where she could find. Made sure sentries looked away. She never took them. Why? Or ask her. But I think because here she was person, not property. They sat quiet, watching stars wheel. Martha thought about Clearwater, about Mrs. Holloway's cold eyes, about Watson's scarred man and his rope. That life felt like a story someone else had lived. Your wives, she said finally. They've been kind. They are good women. Sarah especially said you should be welcomed proper. And you, what do you say? He turned to look at her full on, and in the starlight his face was young, uncertain under the warrior's paint. I say you make me think of morning, new, fresh, full of possibility. But also dangerous morning can bring storm as easy as sunshine. Martha's heart did something complicated in her chest. I don't know your ways, don't know if I can be what you need. I need nothing, want different thing. What do you want? Woman who chooses me free, not from fear or trade or because alternatives are worse. My mother chose my father after 3 years with the band. 3 years of being herself first, then his wife. 3 years is a long time. Is it against lifetime? He stood, offered his hand. Come, Maria will worry. She took his hand, let him pull her up. For a moment they stood close, his hand still holding hers. Then he stepped back, proper distance restored. Walking back, Martha asked, what happens tomorrow and the day after? You learn, work, become strong in our ways or decide they're not your ways. No one forces. And if Watson's men come, then they learn why Comanche still hold this land when others have been pushed to reservations. At Maria's lodge, he stopped her with a gentle hand on her arm. Martha who runs, know this whatever you choose. You are safe here, as my mother was safe, as Maria is safe. This I promise as warrior, as man, as son of woman who was given choice. He was gone before she could answer, leaving her standing in moonlight, head spinning with ceremony and starlight and the strange, terrible hope that maybe she'd found something she hadn't even known she was looking for. Inside the lodge, Maria was awake, working beadwork by the dim fire. Good talk, she asked, not looking up. Confusing talk. Best kind means truth was spoken. Martha changed into sleeping clothes, settled into her buffalo robes, but sleep wouldn't come. She kept thinking about Joseph's words, about choosing, about morning and storms and possibility. Maria, why did you stay really? The older woman set down her beadwork, stared into the dying fire. First year, I stayed from fear. Second year, from comfort. Third year, from love not for man, but for life. For being Maria two horses who mattered. Not Maria nobody who cleaned white women's floors. Do you miss your old life? What life? I miss my family. Yes, but life, she snorted. Here I have 6 children, 20 grandchildren. Here I speak in council when matters of camp are decided. Here I am grandmother, teacher, keeper of stories. There, I would be dead or worse alive, but not living." She looked at Martha direct. "You think too much about choosing. Sometimes life chooses for you. Sometimes you wake up and realize you already chose. Just took time to know it." Martha lay back, pulled robes to her chin. Outside, night birds called. A baby cried somewhere and was soothed. The camp settled into sleep around her, breathing like some great gentle animal. She thought about her mother's gold, about freedom bought with blood. But maybe freedom wasn't about running. Maybe it was about finding a place where you could stop, where being yourself mixed blood, strong back, uncertain heart, and all was enough. The fire died to embers. Maria's breathing went deep and even. And Martha Who Runs lay awake in the Comanche camp, wondering if she was brave enough to become Martha Who Stays. The autumn moon hung fat and yellow when Joseph first spoke of his scars. They'd been gathering pine nuts all day, the women working while warriors kept watch. Martha's hands were sticky with resin. Her back ached. But the work felt good, useful, shared. Nothing like the lonely labor of Clearwater. Evening found her at the stream, washing the day's grime away. Joseph appeared silent as always, but she'd learned to feel his presence now, the way the air changed when he was near. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to a rock nearby. She nodded, suddenly aware of her bare arms, the way water droplets caught lamplight. But he kept his eyes on the stream, giving her privacy while staying close enough to talk. "Winter comes soon," he said. "The band talks of moving south, toward the Brazos wintering grounds." "Is that bad?" "Closer to white settlements, closer to army forts." He picked up a stick, drew patterns in the sand. "More dangerous for everyone, for you especially." "Because I'm wanted. Because you're between. Whites see Apache blood, want to civilize or kill. Mexicans see Anglo blood. Remember old hatred, even some Comanche." He let it trail off. Martha dried her hands on her skirt. "Some Comanche what?" "Question why I brought you. Why I claim first right but don't take you as wife. Sarah and Rebecca don't seem to mind. They are good women, but others talk. Say I weaken myself, weaken band, by waiting for woman who may never choose to stay." The words stung more than Martha expected. These weeks had been the best she'd known, hard work, but fair treatment, belonging to something bigger than herself. The thought that her presence might hurt Joseph, hurt the band, sat like cold stone in her stomach. "Maybe I should—" "No," his voice came sharp, then softer. "No, this is not your burden, is mine." He stood, walked to the stream's edge. In the fading light, she could see the scars across his back, long, pale lines that spoke of violence survived. "I was 12 summers," he said quiet, "out with my father, learning to hunt. Soldiers came, buffalo soldiers, the ones with dark skin like burned wood. We fought. Father died slow, making them pay attention while I ran." Martha moved closer, not touching but near enough he'd know she listened. "They caught me 3 days later, took me to Fort School, said they would make me white, make me Christian, make me forget I was human being." He touched one scar. "This from first time I spoke Comanche. This from refusing white name. This from trying to run." "How did you get away?" "Didn't. They released me after 2 years. Said I was civilized enough. But jokes on them, I remembered everything. Every word, every ceremony, every story my father told. Came back to find my mother remarried. My sisters grown. Everything changed, but me still Comanche inside." He turned to face her. "Those scars remind me every day we choose who we are. They could mark my body but not own my spirit. You understand this. I see it in how you walk now, different from first day, like plant finally finding good soil." Martha's throat felt tight. "I never thanked you for saving me." "No thanks needed. We saved each other, maybe. You from white men who would own you. Me from becoming hard inside. forgetting my mother's story. A night bird called, breaking the moment. Joseph stepped back, proper distance restored. "Tell me about your mother," Martha said. "Your real mother." His face softened. "Elena Morales, 16 when taken, 20 when she married my father. She kept her Mexican name, her Catholic prayers, even while becoming fully Comanche. Father loved her for this, said she was like two rivers joining, making something stronger. Is that what you want, two rivers? I want woman who knows herself first, cannot join with someone who doesn't know their own depths." They walked back to camp together, careful space between them. But something had shifted. The scars he'd shown her weren't just on skin, they were paths to understanding who he was beneath the warrior face. That night, Martha helped Sarah with beadwork while Rebecca's children played around them. The women talked easy about small things, winter preparations, whose baby was due, which horses were breeding well. "He showed you his marks," Sarah said sudden-like. "The school scars." Martha's needle paused. "How did you know?" "His face, softer now, like weight lifted." Sarah smiled. "He shows no one those, not even us, says they're his alone to carry." "But he showed me—" "Yes." Rebecca looked up from her sewing. "Means he sees you as someone who understands carrying marks. Inside ones, not just outside." Martha thought of all her invisible scars, every slur in Clearwater, every time she'd been spat on, passed over, pushed aside. Maybe Joseph saw those like she now saw his. "Can I ask something?" Martha said. "About being second wife, third wife. How does it work?" Sarah laughed. "Not like white men think. We are not servants or property. I chose Joseph for his kindness. Rebecca chose him for protection after her first husband died. We choose each other too, must live in peace together. And if you wanted to leave—" "Then we leave," Rebecca said simple. "Take our children, our property, return to our families or find new husband. Staying is daily choice." "But Joseph is good man," Sarah added. "Asks our thoughts, shares equal, never raises hand in anger. Some men not so good, but women talk, warn each other. Bad husbands find no new wives." Later, Martha lay wakeful again, but different from before. Not restless, but thoughtful. Turning over the day's revelations like river stones. Joseph's scars, his mother's story. The way Sarah and Rebecca spoke of choice, it all painted a picture she was only beginning to see full. Near dawn, she rose to tend nature's call. The camp lay quiet, only sentries awake. She was returning to the lodge when she saw him, Joseph, sitting alone by the banked fire, fletching arrows. "Can't sleep?" she asked, soft. He looked up, smiled. "Dreams of school sometimes. You—" "Dreams of choosing." "Ah." He shifted, made space beside him. "Those are harder than nightmares." She sat, watched his hands work the arrow. Sure, steady, creating something useful from simple parts. "Your mother," she said. "When did she know she'd stay?" "Day I was born. She said, held me and knew she belonged wherever I belonged." "But before that, she woke each day and chose that day. No more, no less." Martha pulled her blanket tighter. Dawn was coming, pink touching the eastern peaks. "I'm afraid," she admitted. "Afraid I'll choose wrong. Afraid I'll bring trouble to you. To the band. Fear is wise. Means you understand weight of choosing." He set down the arrow, looked at her full. "But know this already, you are a different woman from one who offered gold for her life. That woman was running. This woman, maybe she's finding reason to stay." "Maybe," Martha said. "Maybe she is." The sun broke the horizon, painting everything gold and rose. Around them, the camp began to wake, dogs stretching, children crying, women starting cook fires. Another day in the life she was learning to want. Joseph stood, gathered his arrows. "Hunt today. We'll bring meat for winter storing. Be careful." He smiled. touched her hand, brief as butterfly. Always have reasons to return now. After he left, Martha sat watching the camp come alive. Maria emerged, saw her, shook her head with fond exasperation. Young people, no sense about cold. Come, help with breakfast. Busy hands make quiet minds. Martha rose, followed, but her mind was far from quiet. It was full of scars and choices, rivers joining and daily decisions to stay, full of possibilities shaped like tomorrow, dangerous and beautiful as morning light on mountain snow. The rider came at dusk, his horse lathered with sweat and dust. Martha was scraping a hide when the sentry's calls rang out, not the welcome for returning hunters, but the sharp warning of stranger approaching. Women gathered children quick. Warriors appeared from nowhere with weapons ready. But the rider was Comanche, from a band camped 2 days south. He spoke rapid to the elders while Martha and the others watched from safe distance. She caught only pieces, white men, many guns, searching. Joseph found her as darkness fell. His face was grim beneath the paint. Pack light, he said. We may need to move. Is it Watson? The rider brings word. Group of whites asking questions in settlements. About stolen woman, half Apache. They offer gold for information. Martha's stomach turned to water. I'll leave. Tonight, I won't bring danger. You go nowhere. His voice cut sharp. You are under my protection, under band's protection. We do not give up our own. I'm not your own, not really. He gripped her shoulders, gentle but firm. You have eaten our food, slept in our lodges, danced at our fires. You are ours whether you choose to stay forever or not. The camp buzzed with controlled preparation. Not panic, Comanche didn't panic, but the efficient movement of people who'd lived ready to run for generations. Martha helped Maria pack essential goods while men checked weapons and horses. This happened before, Martha asked. Many times. Soldiers, rangers. Sometimes just men who hate. We survive by being ready, being smart. By full dark, a council had formed. Martha wasn't allowed close, but she could see Joseph arguing with some of the older warriors. Gestures flew sharp. Voices rose and fell like tide. Finally, Joseph stalked away, face thunderous. He found Martha by the horses. Some say we should give you back. That one woman not worth risking band. Maybe they're right. No. He slammed his fist against a tree. This is not our way. My mother, Maria, others, we protected them. We protect you. Sarah appeared from the darkness. Husband, the women have spoken too. Martha stays. Any who disagree can answer to us. Martha felt tears prick hot. These people who owed her nothing were ready to fight for her. I have gold, she said, desperate. Maybe I could leave it somewhere. Make them think I died. Gold. Joseph spat the word. Always whites think of gold. We will send message different way. The next morning, 5 warriors rode out. Joseph led them, choosing the band's best fighters. They were gone 3 days. Martha worked herself exhausted, trying not to think about what might be happening. Rebecca and Sarah stayed close, their presence a comfort she hadn't known she needed. On the 3rd night, the warriors returned. No losses, but Thomas Black Eagle had a bullet graze across his ribs. They'd found Watson's men camped near the settlements, delivered their message in the old way, arrows through bedrolls. Horses run off, supplies destroyed. No killing, but clear warning, come no further. Will it work? Martha asked as she helped Sarah tend Black Eagle's wound. Maybe, maybe not. But now they know we watch, know she they hunt is protected. Joseph came to her that night, still carrying the energy of raid and danger. I need to know, if trouble comes, if we must fight true battle. Will you run or stand? What do you want me to say? Truth only. Martha thought of Clearwater, of the life waiting if she ran. Thought of these people ready to bleed for her. I'll stand, even if I'm scared, even if I don't know how to fight. Fighting is more than weapons, is choosing who you stand with when standing costs. A week passed tense. Scouts reported white men still in the area but keeping distance. The band stayed ready to move quick. But life went on, children played, women worked. Seasons didn't wait for human troubles. Martha was grinding corn when the scouts' whistle came riders approaching from the east. But the following call said Comanche, and she relaxed. Then she saw Joseph's face as the riders came clear, and the relief died. 3 Comanche warriors, but with them rode 2 white men. Not Watson's men, these wore badge of authority. Maybe rangers or federal marshals. They came under peace sign, but every warrior in camp stood ready. The lead marshal was older, weathered like old leather. He dismounted slow, hands visible, and spoke in passable Comanche to the chief. Martha couldn't hear, but she saw him gesture her way. Joseph intercepted him before he could approach. They faced off in the center ground while everyone watched white law and Comanche protection measuring each other. "We're not here for trouble," the marshal said loud enough for all to hear. "Just want to talk to the woman, make sure she's here by choice." "All here by choice." Joseph said, "No slaves in Comanche camp." "So they say, but man named Watson claims she stole from him. Says she's touched in the head, needs protecting." "Watson lies." The marshal studied Joseph, then looked past him to where Martha stood. "Let her tell me herself." Martha's legs felt like water, but she walked forward. The marshal's eyes were tired but not unkind, taking in her Comanche dress, her sun-darkened skin, the way she stood. "You, Martha Reyes?" "I am." "You here by your own will?" "I am. Watson says you took $40 gold from his associate." Martha lifted her chin. "Watson's man planted that gold to trap me. I took nothing but my own freedom." The marshal nodded slow. "Figured something like that. Watson's got a reputation, but law's law, he's made a complaint." "Then law is wrong." "Maybe so, but I've got a job." He looked around the camp, seeing warriors ready to fight, women and children who'd suffer if violence came. "Here's what I can do. I can report I found you, that you're with the Comanche by choice, and that pursuing the matter would cost more blood than $40 gold is worth." "And Watson?" "Watson's a businessman. He'll weigh costs and decide a half Apache girl ain't worth starting a war over." The marshal's mouth quirked. Might even suggest he be careful about making false accusations. Federal government takes a dim view of stirring up Indian trouble over personal grudges. He turned to go, then looked back. "You made your choice, girl. Hope it serves you well." To Joseph, he added, "You've got fighters here, but winter's coming and the Army's got new guns. Think about the reservation. Not saying it's right, but it might be the only way to keep your people safe." "We die free before we live caged," Joseph said. "Maybe, but dying's permanent. Think about it." They left under the same peace sign they'd come with. The camp stayed tense until scouts confirmed they were truly gone, heading back to settlements. Then the argument started, some saying this proved Martha brought danger, others defending her right to sanctuary. That night, Joseph called special council, not just warriors, but women too, even the older children. Martha sat with Maria, understanding only fragments of the rapid Comanche, but feeling the weight of decision in the air. Joseph stood to speak. His words carried pain but also pride. And though Martha couldn't follow all, she heard her name woven through it. When he finished, silence held for long moments. Then Maria stood. She spoke strong and clear, and other women nodded, one by one. People stood to speak, some angry, some supportive, all passionate about their band's future. When the talking finally ended, the chief called for decision. Not vote exactly, but consensus built from all voices. In the end, the choice was clear. Martha stayed. She was theirs now, for better or worse. Later, Joseph found her crying by the river. He sat beside her, patient as stone. "They could have turned me out," she managed. "Should have. But didn't. You know why?" She shook her head. Because we are all outcasts here, pushed from our lands, hunted by armies, called savage by people who never knew our names. You think you bring danger? We were born to danger, but we were also born to choosing our own path. The marshal was right about winter, about the army. Maybe, but today we are free. Today we choose who stands with us. Tomorrow. He shrugged. Tomorrow comes when it comes. Martha wiped her eyes. Your mother would be proud of what you said in council. She lives in how we treat strangers who become family. That is her true legacy. He stood, offered his hand. She took it, let him pull her up, and for a moment they stood close in the darkness. Whatever comes, Martha said, I'll face it with you, with the band. I know, Joseph said. That is why you are worth protecting. Not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough to stand with us when standing costs. They walked back to camp together, toward the fires and the people who'd chosen her despite the danger. Tomorrow would bring what it brought, but tonight, she was home. The attack came with the frost moon, when the band had settled into winter camp near Sweetwater Creek. Martha woke to the thunder of hooves and Sarah's urgent hand shaking her shoulder. Soldiers, Sarah hissed. Many, get the children to the caves. Outside was controlled chaos warriors grabbing weapons, while women herded children toward the hidden shelters they'd prepared for such times. But this was different from the quick raid warning. This was the sound of real war coming. Martha grabbed Rebecca's youngest, the boy clutching her neck as she ran. Behind them, the first gunshots cracked like breaking bones. Not random fire-organized volleys that spoke of military discipline. The caves were narrow openings in the canyon wall, invisible from below. Martha pushed children inside, counting heads, her heart hammering when she realized how many were missing. Below, she could see blue uniforms spreading through the camp like a disease. Stay, she told the eldest girl. Keep them quiet. She ran back toward the camp, against the flood of fleeing women. The lodges were burning now, smoke thick and choking. Through it she saw Joseph's spotted pony, riderless, and her blood went cold. A child's cry pulled her left little James Crow feather. Sarah's son, trapped under a fallen lodge pole. Martha heaved it off him, scooped him up. A soldier appeared through the smoke, rifle raising, and she froze. The shot came, but not from him. The soldier crumpled, and Thomas Black Eagle materialized, war paint fierce in the firelight. Go, he shouted. Get the boy safe. Martha ran, James crying against her shoulder. More soldiers ahead, cutting off the path to the caves. She veered toward the horse herd, thinking only to lead them away from the children. That's when she saw him not a soldier, but Watson's scarred man, mounted on a cavalry horse. Scanning the chaos with pale eyes, he spotted her the same instant she saw him. There, he bellowed. The breed woman. 3 soldiers turned her way. Martha set James down, pushed him toward a clump of sage. Hide, she ordered, then ran opposite direction, making herself the target. Bullets whined past like angry wasps. Her Comanche clothes tangled her legs, and she went down hard, rolling. When she looked up, the scarred man was above her, grinning. Thought you could hide with savages forever. I wasn't hiding, Martha spat. I was living. He dismounted, reaching for rope. Watson's waiting, says to bring you back breathing, but he didn't say nothing about undamaged. The war cry came from nowhere, Joseph, painted for death, slamming into the scarred man like vengeance itself. They went down tangled, rolling in the dust and ash. The scarred man was bigger, meaner, but Joseph fought with the fury of a man defending everything. Martha scrambled for a dropped rifle, but soldiers were closing in. She saw Rebecca cornered against burning lodges, fighting with a knife. Saw Black Eagle go down under 3 blues. Saw children she'd helped raise being herded like cattle. The scarred man had Joseph pinned, hands around his throat. Martha didn't think she swung the rifle butt with all her strength, catching him across the temple. He toppled sideways, and Joseph rolled free, gasping. "The caves!" he choked out. "Protect the children!" But it was too late for protection. Soldiers were everywhere, and with them came rangers, Indian agents, men with papers and authority, and the weight of civilization behind them. The fighting was dying to sporadic shots, warriors overwhelmed by numbers and firepower. An officer rode through the smoke, older man with silver in his beard. He surveyed the destruction with something like regret. "Enough," he called. "Ceasefire. Round up survivors for the reservation." "No reservation," Joseph snarled, struggling to his feet. "We die free." The officer sighed. "Son, that's exactly what you'll do if you keep fighting. Your people need you alive." Martha saw the moment Joseph's warrior pride met the truth his band scattered, lodges burning, children crying for parents who'd never answer. She took his hand, felt him trembling with rage and grief. "The children need us," she said soft. "The living matter more than pride." Something broke in his face. Around them, surviving Comanche were being gathered, hands bound, dreams shattered. Martha saw Maria, blood on her face but standing proud. Sarah holding James, tears cutting tracks through ash and dirt. "What about her?" A soldier pointed at Martha. "She white or Indian?" Watson's scarred man, blood streaming from his temple, lurched forward. "She's property. Stole from Mr. Watson. I got papers." "She's Comanche," Joseph said. "My wife." "Since when?" the scarred man sneered. "Since now." Joseph raised their joined hands. "By declaration and witness." Maria stepped forward, chin high despite her bound hands. "I witness she is wife to Standing Wolf, mother to our children, daughter to our band." Others echoed her, even with guns pointed at them. The officer looked between them. The scarred man. Martha standing there in smoke-stained doeskin with Apache features and desperate eyes. "Federal policy is clear," he said finally. "Indian wives go with their husbands. Property disputes are civil matters for the courts, not military concern." "This is horseshit." The scarred man reached for his gun, but soldiers stepped between. "Watson paid good money." "Then Watson can take it up with the federal government." The officer's voice went steel. "My orders are to remove hostiles to the reservation. This woman goes with her husband or not at all." They bound Joseph's hands, but let Martha stay close. Around them, the camp that had been home became memory lodges collapsed to ember, carefully preserved food stores burning, a way of life reduced to ash and sorrow. "I'm sorry," Martha whispered as they were herded toward the waiting wagons. "This is my fault. Watson came because of me." "No." Joseph's voice was hollow. "This was coming anyway. Army's been planning. You were excuse, not cause." She thought of her mother's gold, still sewn into her dress. Useless weight now. What good was gold when everything that mattered was burning? They loaded the survivors rough but not cruel. Martha helped lift children, supported elders, tried not to count the faces missing. Too many. The warriors who'd fought hardest were separated, marked for special attention. She saw them push Joseph toward that group and grabbed the officer's stirrup. "Please, he's no more dangerous than the others. Let him stay with his family." The officer studied her. "You really his wife, or just saying so to save him?" Martha thought of all the moments leading here Joseph's first words about wanting her, not her gold. Nights by the fire, learning to belong. The way he'd fought for her freedom even when it cost his band everything. "I'm his wife," she said, and knew it for truth. "In all ways that matter." "Then you'd best act like it. Reservation's hard on fighting men. They need reasons to live, not die." They let Joseph stay with the main group. As the wagons rolled out, Martha looked back at the burning camp. Something glinted in the ashes, her mother's comb, the one she'd left for Doc Morrison so long ago. How it got here, she'd never know. She left it in the ashes with everything else. The past was dead. What came next? She'd face as Martha Standing Wolf, wife to a warrior. mother to scattered children, keeper of what memories survived. The scarred man rode alongside, ugly promises in his eyes, but for now, she was with her people. For now, that was enough. "Sing," Maria commanded from the wagon bed. "Sing so the children remember we are still Comanche." So they sang as they rolled toward cages called reservations, toward a future none had chosen, but they sang together. And in that was defiance. In that was hope that somewhere, somehow, they'd find a way to be free again. Martha sang too, her voice joining the others, and felt Joseph's bound hands find hers. Whatever came, they'd face it together. The price of her freedom had cost everything, but in the ashes of that cost, she'd found something worth more than gold. She'd found her people, and they would not let her go. The reservation sprawled like a wound across the prairie, barbed wire and guard towers where once there'd been endless sky. 6 months they'd been here. 6 months of rations and roll calls, of watching proud warriors wither like plants torn from good soil. Martha stood outside their assigned shack, watching Joseph work the poor plot they'd been given. His hands, meant for weapons and horses, struggled with the foreign plow, but he worked steady, determined to wrest something from this hard ground. "Seeds won't grow in cursed earth," Thomas Black Eagle said, passing by. He'd aged 10 years in 6 months, the fire gone from his eyes. "Then we make it blessed," Joseph replied, not looking up. Martha knew he worked to keep from thinking, from remembering. Too many hadn't made it through the winter elders who couldn't bear cages, warriors who'd chosen the spirit path over slow death. Even some children, their lights dimming without freedom's air to breathe. But some endured. Sarah's belly rounded with new life. Rebecca taught the young ones Comanche ways in secret. After the missionary school let out, Maria led the women in keeping what traditions they could, adapting ceremonies for watched eyes and regulated lives. Mrs. Standing Wolf." The agent's voice made Martha turn. Henderson, a man who meant well but understood nothing. "There's someone here to see you." Her blood chilled. But it wasn't Watson or his scarred man. That threat had faded when the Army made clear she was under federal protection as an Indian wife. Instead, a woman stood by the agency building, elderly, dressed Eastern proper but with something familiar in her bearing. "Martha." The voice hit her like lightning. She knew it, though she'd never heard it, knew it in her bones, her blood. "I'm your mother's sister," the woman said. Catherine Santos now, but I was born walks in moonlight." Martha's legs went weak. Joseph appeared beside her, soil-dirty hands gentle on her arm. "How?" was all Martha could manage. "I've been searching since I heard about Clearwater, about a half Apache girl run off with Comanche." Catherine's eyes, Martha's eyes, her mother's eyes filled with tears. "I thought we'd lost everyone, but you survived. Elena's daughter survived." They sat in the shade, this proper Eastern lady who'd been Apache once, and Martha who'd traveled the circle opposite. Catherine told her story, taken young to boarding school, married to a Mexican merchant, living white but never forgetting. "I have money," Catherine said, quiet. "Position. I can petition for your release, yours and your husband's. You could come east. Live properly." "Properly." Martha tasted the word like bitter medicine. "You mean live white?" "Live free," Catherine corrected. "With choices." Joseph spoke for the first time. "Prison with soft beds is still prison." Catherine studied him, this warrior reduced to farmer. "And this is better, watching your people die slowly." "We die together," he said simply. That night, Martha lay wakeful beside Joseph in their narrow bed. Around them, the sounds of the reservation dogs barking, babies crying, guards calling the hour. So different from camp sounds, yet life persisting stubborn. "You could go," Joseph whispered. "Your aunt speaks true. There's nothing for you here but slow sorrow." "There's you, Sarah," Rebecca, Maria, the children who call me mother. We would understand. Martha rolled to face him. In the darkness, she could pretend they were in their lodge again, free under stars. My mother cut herself open to give me gold for freedom. But freedom isn't leaving. It's choosing where you stand when standing's hard. He pulled her close, and she felt his tears silent against her hair. Morning brought unexpected circus wagons rolling in with photographers, men in suits talking about preserving the noble savage before they vanished entire. They wanted pictures, stories, artifacts to show Eastern folks who'd never smelled sage or heard war cries. Paid work, Henderson explained. Pose for pictures, make crafts for sale, better than government rations. Martha watched Joseph's face as they dressed him in museum feathers, positioned him noble savage for the camera, watched Sarah demonstrate beadwork for gawking visitors who bought pieces for parlor conversation, watched their lives become curiosity, their pain become profit. But she also watched Maria pocket the coins careful, saw Rebecca teaching interested whites the wrong way to do things while keeping the real knowledge safe. Saw Joseph meet her eyes across the circus and wink, "We survived this too." "You're the Apache girl, aren't you?" A photographer approached Martha. "The one who chose to stay, that's a story worth telling." "Every story here is worth telling," Martha replied. "But you don't want truth. You want romance." "Romance sells. Helps people sympathize with your plight." Martha thought of her mother's gold, still hidden, thought of Catherine's offer, of Eastern rooms and proper dresses and forgetting you were ever anything but white passing. "Then here's your romance," she said. "Girl offers gold for her life. Warriors say they want her, not her gold. She learns their ways, finds her heart, chooses love over safety. How's that?" The man scribbled eager, "And the ending." Martha looked across the compound. Joseph had escaped the photographers, was teaching the young boys to make arrows in the old way. Sarah sang to her new baby. Rebecca helped an elder woman who'd lost her daughter. Maria organized the women for evening food distribution. Dignity maintained even in charity. "No ending," Martha said. "Just tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Each one a choice to keep living, keep loving, keep being who we are despite everything." The photographer wanted more drama, but Martha walked away. Catherine waited by the agency. Departure imminent. "You're sure?" her aunt asked. "I'm sure." Martha pulled out the leather pouch, pressed it into Catherine's hands. "My mother's gold. Use it for the children here, medicines, blankets, whatever Henderson won't provide." Catherine held the nuggets like they burned. "This was meant for your freedom." "I am free, maybe not the way she imagined, but free to choose my place, my people, my purpose." Martha smiled, sad but real. "That's all anyone can ask." They embraced, this aunt who'd chosen one survival and niece who'd chosen another. Neither path wrong, just different rivers to the same sea. As Catherine's carriage rolled away, Joseph joined Martha. His hands were clean now, but soil lived permanent under his nails' mark of this new life they were building from ashes. "Regrets?" he asked. "None. You?" "Only that our children will know cages before sky." He took her hand. "But they will know. Somehow. We'll make sure they know." The sun set red over barbed wire and guard towers. Smoke rose from cook fires where women made what they could from government beef and flour. Children played in the dust, inventing games from nothing. Life persisted. Martha Standing Wolf, who'd been Martha Reyes, who'd been nobody and everybody's scorn, walked with her husband toward their small home. She'd offered gold for her life once, desperate and alone. The warriors had said they wanted her, not her gold. Now she understood they'd wanted her to become herself, to choose, to stand, to be. The gold had been nothing. The becoming was everything. Behind them, Thomas Black Eagle began to drum illegal but unstoppable. Others joined, voices rising in songs the missionaries couldn't kill. Martha added her voice. This Apache Anglo woman who'd found her place among the Comanche, who'd paid everything for freedom and found it in the last place anyone would look. In a cage, she'd learned to fly. In losing everything, she'd found what mattered. In choosing to stay when she could run, she'd discovered that home isn't a place, but a decision renewed each dawn. The stars came out, same stars that had watched her flee Clearwater, watched her dance at Comanche fires, watched the burning and the binding and the long road here. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new sorrows, new small victories. But tonight, she was Martha Standing Wolf. She was chosen and choosing. She was exactly where she belonged. The drum beat on. The people endured. And somewhere in the distance, coyotes sang freedom songs the reservation couldn't fence. Thank you for listening to this story from the American frontier. Where are you enjoying these tales from the Wild West? Leave a comment below and let's connect across the miles. Don't forget to subscribe to From Wild West channel and share your thoughts on Martha's journey. Your stories and responses keep these tales alive, just as the Comanche kept their traditions alive against all odds.